So those of you out in the internet, we've already got one caller in. We're not taking calls until later. So, again, welcome. And so, just for those of you who don't know, like what this place is and what we're doing here tonight, the Wholeness Center is in Valley Cottage, New York, and it's basically an experiment in a new way of doing even business and wellness and the collective energy. Ariana's in the back of the room. Ariana and Kristen founded this. Basically, the idea popped into existence 15 years ago. And now it's manifest in a beautiful 3-story building down in the heart of Valley Cottage. And what we aim to be is like a nexus, a vortex of a place where practitioners can go and plug in and be part of a community, and then with that energy serve ourselves and everybody else. So it's we have meetings here that turn into shared like meditation experiments, and everyone with their meeting happened, but it's almost like the people didn't know because it was encompassed in an amazing just experience. So that leads to what tonight is. This is an experiment. This is an experiment in. It's the first one of these that we've done, and honestly, I was going to do one about healing and what is healing, because the Wholeness Center, we're the whole, and it sounded like a great idea until late at night I kept getting hijacked by, I'd go to Huffington Post and a half an hour would vanish, and I'd wonder, so I said, wait, I have to deal with this right now. So I invited the most amazing people I could find, who I love the way they be in the world and how they communicate and how they give. They're all pretty. They have activism and passion in their DNA, but they come across as gentle, really gentle souls. So I'm pretty psyched to have this at the perfect time. February 8th, this is the time to have this night. So welcome back. You're back. So let's go right into it. I'm gonna ask each of the panelists to. Well, let me check this. So we're good. Good. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to say who they are and a little bit about what they do, what causes they get behind in the world, how they maneuver in the world, and then a little bit about what conscious communication means to them, and what, combined with what their intentions are about something like this. And this is going to be very free form. We don't know where it's going to go. It's the first of its kind. Anything could happen, especially when Rucker's here. So in any particular order, when you're moved, just like little bit of intro.
I'll go first. I am Cynthia Shaw, and I am a psychotherapist. I'm an artist. I call myself a creativity coach as well, and I'm a core energetics practitioner in training. And what I'm really passionate about is working individually and in groups with people, primarily women actually. There are some men who find their way to me, but I really do work primarily with women. And what I really love is helping people understand that why they're coming in is actually an opportunity, because obviously when someone comes to therapy, often they're in crisis of some sort, or there's a big life transition going on. And I really like to help them have the perspective that it's such an opportunity for growth. and to begin to look at that and to lead them inside to find where they can find their inner wisdom, their knowing. And I have a unique approach where I do use the fact that I'm an artist. I do a lot of creativity exercises with people. I'll sometimes help them do writing exercises. Really depends on the person and what their interest is. But I also am bringing in the body now, and I really think that we can't split the two. So I'm excited about bringing that more and more into my work, really helping people into breathing deeply, exercises and movements they can do to get more in touch with what's going on. Because when we're just doing talk therapy, it's so in the head, and it's so important to really, well, speaking of wholeness, to really help someone to be whole, really body, mind, and soul. And I really do believe in terms of conscious communication that we have to get to a place of peace and understanding and self-acceptance inside of ourselves before we can really communicate effectively. And that part of that means having to look at our shadow, looking at what makes us angry, what are we reactive to, what do we feel envious of, where are we really judgmental? Because it's just, we can shame ourselves for those feelings, or we can just say, hey, I'm human, and those feelings come up, and understand where they get in our way of a conscious communication in all kinds of ways, on very intimate levels, but also in a larger world or country way. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to say tonight, this quote from the Dalai Lama kind of practically landed in my lap, and it was so perfect I wanted to read it. So he says, "A calm mind and self-confidence are the basis for happy and peaceful relations with each other. We need to encourage an understanding that inner peace comes from relying on human values like love, compassion, tolerance, and honesty, and that peace in the world relies on individuals finding inner peace."
Amen.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And before we go on, should I shut this door, or is there, because there's I have a feeling that the audio is going to be here. And by the way, this door, if you like this door was made by Chris Brigante, who is one of the founder of Ariana's husband, and I see him in the morning. He's working on something I don't even know what it is, and in the evening there's a beautiful piece of what seems to be like $5,000 art. Unbelievable. I think that's better.
I'm Gina Martin. I am a board-certified acupuncturist. I've been practicing Chinese medicine for, oh my God, almost 30 years. Since God was young. And I'm also a priestess of the goddess. I'm the head clergy in a congregation here in Rockland County, which is called Triple Spiral Janashi. It's an earth-based spirituality and a goddess-focused group of men and women and children and animals. I am most passionate about the earth and women. And I think most clearly for me that the way we look and view and treat women in the world is the way we look and view and treat the earth. And we rape one and we rape the other. I firmly believe that as long as God is only male, we cannot legislate equality. I really firmly believe that when we imbue the divine with attributes of male and female, or of non-gender, then all people can be treated with a degree of divinity. And I don't think legislation ever gets us to the place where treating people with divinity gets us. So my two passions, which are feminism and earth activism, I can't separate them at this point in my life. I'm equally rabidly passionate about them both. And in these days and times, in my work, where everyone who walks in the room basically is saturated in what I call drumpy and dread, my work is about holding everybody up through that, and then figuring out how to hold myself up through that. So I think all of us who help heal other people are in particular on call right now to be self-care practitioners more than ever. So that's part of what tonight is for me too, is figuring out how we can support each other in our own self-care. And I really do believe that the dying mule kicks the hardest. And so if this is the patriarchy kicking and screaming, so be it. As the Taoists say, everything is perfectly revealed exactly as it is. So here we are, and it's exactly revealed perfectly. So what do we do with that?
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. My name is Jon Lee Rucker. I'm not a guru. I'm just a simple, humble musician, activist, poet, and passionate about the earth as well. I guess I'm a feminist too. I don't really hear men say that too often, but
Shout it out, brother.
Absolutely. Big into the women's empowerment thing right now too. So for about 5 years now, I'd say I've been just like really meditating and praying and focusing on this question, like, how do we fix this mess? How do we reharmonize, make a beautiful world for our children, all life upon it? So I focus a lot on that. Obviously communication is a big part of it, I'm really into connecting to nature, being that example of somebody who grew up in Rockland County in the suburbs and reconnected to nature, really found a deep connection living in nature. So I like to be that example for others. I feel that communication is lost because of our connection to nature. If we're not connected to nature, then everything we're doing is disconnected from nature, including the way that we talk. So that's a big part of it right there, just getting back to Mother Earth. I started an organization called PermaJam last year, and we're organizing music festivals that bridge together permaculture and spirituality and prayer and a whole lot of good music. And we give 100% of our profits to the farms. People that come to our festivals actually participate in transforming the landscape into a regenerative system. So I call that a living prayer for the next generation, because we're actually coming together to do something that's going to be there for the next generation. That's why it's a permaculture, it's permanent culture. Right? So, just in the last couple of days, I started the launch of another organization called We Are Mother Earth, and it's a uniting platform for people on this planet. It's that one simple fact that unites all of us. We come from the same mother. And the way it functions is to channel our energy, our collective energy, our money, and our sweat and blood back to the earth and into the next 7 generations. So we're just launching that. And there's a whole lot to say about it, but not right now. If you want to know about it, you're going to have to talk to me after this. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here.
Okay. I made a few notes because I realized I had so many things I wanted to say, and so I realized I had to kind of cut it down and organize it and just choose. And then I realized, that's really a tip I wanted to pass along to those of you who are inundated with so many messages and so many things to do. Write it down, get it organized, pick and choose, and choose. And then you'll have something you can focus on. Hopefully I have something I can focus on here. I wanted to just, give some attention to the fact that a lot of people are in pain right now. And there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of guilt, there's anger, and a lot of confusion. And we're all kind of asking this question, what to do? What do we need to do? What should I do? At least a lot of people that come up to me are new to asking that question. What should I do about the world? And I'm actually not inclined to speak directly about that right now, except to say that there are amazing new groups that are cropping up. John here just mentioned what he's doing. There's in Rockland County, there's the Rockland Citizens Action Network, there's ROAR, there's the Rockland United. There's groups that have been around for a long time doing very successful work that people can get involved with. The Rockland Farm Alliance, the Rockland Water Coalition, the Rockland Coalition to End the New Jim Crow. Many, Rockland Sierra Club, others I'm not mentioning. But I think I wanted to kind of focus on something a little beneath the strategizing and goal setting and tactics of what to do tonight. Because I think what we're facing, when we really look at it, is not the horror show that's coming out of the White House right now. What we're facing is the confusing and sometimes demonic voices in our own head. And we're called to bring our own egos into the service of something higher, something more real than the chatter that's going on in our brain, which in many ways is a reflection of the chatter on the internet and the chatter on social media. And so what I draw from, and this is kind of getting into where my passion is, what my causes are, although I support and I'm a member of and I get the emails from all of the organizations that I mentioned, which I think are doing very valuable and important work that I'm part of. But I draw from, to get direction, to get guidance, to get healing, two major threads or lineage that come from ancient sources. One is meditation and yoga, which I really see as the same thing, which brings us to realize that all human beings are divine and have within them the basic goodness and compassion that we seek to bring into the world. And shamanism, which tells us, among other things, that we're not alone, that human beings are not alone in that divine connection, that we get healing and guidance from animals, from plants, from minerals, from Mother Earth, from the stars, from the sun, and from beings that are not physical, from the spiritual realms. And so I draw from those two sources that what our movement is really about, in addition to changing certain systems to have better health care and have freedoms here and all of the good things that we seek in the world. What our movement is really about is bringing about a change of mind and heart in humanity, a shift towards a more compassionate and loving way of experiencing ourselves and expressing ourselves. So, that said, I want to just say one more thing, which is that it's very, very difficult to change minds. And if you have any doubt about that, just think about the last time you changed your own mind about anything. And so the work is long in terms of, the march ahead. But I do believe that we have the tools that have been given to us by our ancestors and by people who are now working to integrate the various wisdom traditions. And so I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful at this point, and I look forward to having further discussion on some of the details of how that plays out. I'm Alan Levin, by the way. I'm a therapist and whatever else I am.
Alan's also the author of an amazing book called Crossing Boundaries. It's about, I'm going to paraphrase this, but it's about people of Jewish heritage that went on to all kinds of other greatness that you wouldn't associate with the traditional Jewish heritage.
The subtitle is Stories of Jewish Leaders of Other Spiritual Paths. Thanks, Tom, for the plug.
Well, I think it ties in, because something that came up when I was listening, it was the they, other, maybe we can start there, like, what's what's changed in the past 3 months? Like, who's they, who's the other, is there any other? Is it helpful to abolish that, or it's a very broad question, I realize, but yeah, like, where do we start? It's how do we stay centered and grounded and connected while disagreeing? So let's, like up on the mountain at the ashram, there's no they, it's all just, we're all in this together. And then, okay, well then you just relinquished any right to, like, even take a stand against something, because there must be something, so,
Well, it occurs to me that we constantly struggle with our neurology, because there's a huge chunk of our brain, there's a big piece of real estate in all of our brains that's specifically set aside for facial recognition. That's all it does. It only fires when we're recognizing faces. And we're hardwired to differentiate and know faces in order to determine safety. I know you, therefore I'm safe. I don't know you, so maybe I'm not. And it's hardwired in our neurology. So we're set up to differentiate us and them. That's the way as a species we survive. And I heard Jane Goodall give a fabulous talk about this very subject, where she talked about one group of chimpanzees that she observed. And they all played, and all the kids played together, and the mothers and the aunties took care of everybody. And the young males would go to the periphery and patrol. And if one single foreigner came to them, they'd make a loud noise and they would scare this foreign chimp off. But if more than one, say 2 or 3 or 4 came, they would go out and rip them to shreds. I mean, exhibit such ferocity, such brutality that they never showed in any other circumstance. So it's the us and it's the them. But when the them gets bigger in number, we get triggered, right? Mm-hmm. So what she discovered in watching this group is that at one point, the group split in 2. The cousins, the brothers, the siblings, half of the young men went to the southern part of their territory. They'd all grown up together, they were all the us. Within 3 years, all of the young males who had gone to the new part of the territory had been murdered by the old us. Which means that it doesn't take much to tip somebody from us to them. But we're hardwired to perceive it. So how do we overcome our basic primate nature? How do we overcome the fact that them is scary? It is. Them is scary. It can't not be scary to us. We have to give ourselves a freaking break and go, yes, it's scary. They're different. Okay, how do I then elevate myself past that? How do I behave better than a chimp? is the basic question, because we do have the capability to do that, but not until we wrestle with our primate nature and say, well, yeah, them is scary. Whatever I define them as, because this huge chunk of real estate in my brain is not going to shut up about that. It's going to always acknowledge that them is different and them is scary. So there's our primary work, I think, is just figuring out how to, okay, well, there's my chimp. There's my chimp nature. Well then, all right, listen to her. She's valid on some level, my inner chimp. And then what? Then how do I do better than that? How do I move past those definitions, which are real on some level, and move to a grander definition of us? And so it occurs to me that we can't ignore what we are as we try and figure out what we can be.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that. And I think that the biggest breakdown in good communication is fear. And I think that we are fear-based animals, just like you're saying. And that you, Alan, had talked about meditation, etc. And I think that one of the things that's so important is that we not believe our thoughts a lot of the time. And choose, notice when have fear-based thoughts and choose something different. But you can't do it without acknowledging that it's there and that it makes you angry or it makes you whatever, judgmental. That to slow down and change the thought or notice what the thought is.
Awareness.
Yeah.
We've been given, again, from many traditions, teachings that help us transform some of the instinctual habits or patterning or programming that works against a healthy community. So there are wisdom traditions also in the human lineage that go back thousands of years that where there's an awareness that we have certain programs within us, and we're able somehow to use the energy and transform that in ways that turn it into something more creative and something more cooperative. And I think we do. We have fear, and we have to be able to acknowledge it and face it. And we also have the ability to transform fear into compassion. But it takes intention. It takes conscious intention. And I think that's a part of the work of the movement, is to not only communicate ideas about what would be a better way to do this and what would be a better way to do that, but how do you deal with the voices in your head and the negativity in your heart, and how do you find peace yourself in order to bring peace into the world.
But if we're looking at identifying the fear and being aware of it, okay, and then it seems that the person we're mad at isn't doing that. Like they're just mad. They're not aware of. They're just doing. And I get that. That's my the story that I've come up with. Like there's almost no in the, let's just say, in the hardcore Rush Limbaugh type world. I say, well, there's no people who are aware of anything, but I know that's kind of not true. There's people who are highly evolved that believe that, and they think that most of this type of side is not thinking about it. They're just doing it wrong. So like, what do we individually do to not battle that?
Well, what I would say is that this chair is not a great chair. well, you know, we might be working through these issues ourselves and we might, you know, feel like, oh, we're doing such great conscious work and we're talking with people that aren't on that same level of intention or awareness and, you know, really that's just the situation that we're in. You know, we have to accept that, you know, we have to accept that there is a lot of fear and running our society right now and everybody's at a different stage of evolution. And obviously, if we want to move towards harmony, then that's going to take a lot of work. You know, we're going to have to work with all our brothers and sisters and meet them right where they're at so that we can progress and elevate it in some way. You know, so I mean, one thing is that we all just kind of put on a face, you know, and everybody wants to act like we're not afraid or, you know, we feel so great all the time. But, you know, fear is something that I feel like we need to embrace a little bit more and even have more understanding for why there is so much fear that we hold and that others hold. Gina was saying that it's a perfectly natural response, so I feel like it's something that we really should have more compassion for, understanding, and even, you know, wear it a little more proudly on our sleeve, you know, not have to hide it so much because, I mean, it's hard, you know, to talk with somebody who has a lot of fear, you know. But then as soon as they say that, you know, hey, I feel a little vulnerable right now, right? Well, you know, you feel a lot better talking to them too, because now it's not some great mystery of what is going on inside this person, you know? So let's just be real with each other about how we're feeling. You know?
It's making me think back to the word that you used. You used the word battle, you know, with people who are perhaps conscious in a very different way than we are. And I don't think we can battle them, that you know, they feel, you know, people who have totally different feelings than us have them. And I think it's more about increasing the light and the love that we can put out. But that the battle is, with that, just doesn't go anywhere. There are some people who we can be more vulnerable with, and it might open some vulnerability and some greater communication. But there are going to be many, many people who we could just listen to and hear their very different opinions, and hopefully they might be able to just listen and hear, but it's not going to change.
Right, that's a good point. Oh, wait,
You know, I just had
can we get the chair?
Yeah.
Get the chair.
an interesting thought, I never thought of this before. You know, we're talking about biological programming that's built in, as you said, Gina, that we would fear some sort of facial recognition program that tells us that this is a different sort of them. And humans have evolved something actually very different. Really, also not necessarily very helpful, but we fear people who look just like us but have different ideas.
Yes.
We have mental fears.
Yes.
Mental.
The
mental.
them, yeah. And, you know, my sense is, you know, we operate on different levels. I do. And, you know, like I'm sort of taking the high ground with all of this meditation and shamanism stuff and transformation. But, you know, the truth is that when I'm confronted with, not even live, but in radio or in the news, you know, some of the statements that are coming out of them at this point, I have a fire that comes up in me that just wants to kill.
Yes.
There's hatred
Absolutely.
and anger that
And
is
that's
just
my fear.
incredibly intense,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's why we're all here, because it's that
Right.
fear when we see TV, we see him
Right.
saying all these horrible things, and now that's our fear. Now, how do we deal with that fear?
So the other part of me,
That's the answer.
the other part of me knows that from experience that that's a poison, that there's a poisonous effect
Yeah.
of allowing that to sit. If I allow it to come up and just recognize, whew, you know, it's like a volcano that passes through. And I can then use the practices that I know to attune to that higher consciousness that allows me to look at, even the man who occupies the White House now, who some people like to say, and I
Number
like that
45.
idea, name that we don't mention or something. And see that there's a really an insecure, childlike ego maniac, but victim of something that has brought him to that. And I can feel compassion in that moment, for those moments where I'm in that place. And so I try to cultivate that place. I try to cultivate that experience in myself. And I don't maintain it.
I know, you have to do it like 25 times a day.
Well, let's go there. This is perfect. Yes, Ariana?
I've been just watching collectively what's happening. I'm thinking of it in a broader scale. I see whoever that person is in our life, we're projecting this scenario out, whether it be the person that's in authority, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a partner, maybe it's a parent. This is playing out in our own personal process every day. And I think that the tools that we learn to use within ourselves for just those everyday interactions with others, it's going to help also on a bigger scale of what's happening in the world around us. I'm very cautious because I see everyone, and I like to create a space where all is being held in a safe container, and all is being seen and witnessed and heard. But I'm paying attention to what's coming up inside me, and what's the story that I'm projecting out onto everything in my life. That's where my work is. And I think that that's what the Wholeness Center is. So it's creating a safe space for all to exist, but that this is just a human process that's happening every day in our life, where whoever we're looking at, if someone is saying something that might be intimidating, or someone does something and something inside of us feels scared, maybe we're replaying a tape of something that we experienced in our childhood. There's a lot happening, and I think, how can we come together to work on these human stories that live inside of us? And it's not about, yes, it is about what's happening globally, but it's also happening really personally. I just wanted to speak that.
Yeah, I just feel like it's happening to everybody.
Well, it does.
And it's like, I can't say to my children, it's gonna be okay, but it's gonna be all right. I can't solve their problem, because there's a big, huge problem in this world right now. And I don't understand how this is going on.
Okay, I got you. And just so you know, we are going to, shortly, we're going to, because it seems to be asking, it's awesome, the energy's building at that. We're going to circle around, we're going to take a break, move around, and then circle around, turn the cameras off, and just have a nice discussion. But I want to go practical for a second, because there might be people watching, and I had this who want, some tools, like immediate tools, because like what Ariana was saying, it's not just what's happening inside of us, it's happening like in a moment, tomorrow at 10:30 when the plow guy rips off, knocks over your mailbox, like, whoa, we're triggered. So I was thinking, so we're if you're a liberal, you get triggered because of somebody gets appointed to the education who doesn't that. But what if you're the other side? And you're watching, even the Women's March is like millions of people going against a duly elected person, and they're triggered. So what do? What should they do in the moment that they get triggered like that? In our opinions, what's the moment-to-moment strategy to, like, here comes the fire, and then what? Should you run around outside in the backyard until you're tired? Or?
No, I think that you just gave us a physical demonstration of what,
Yeah,
because you went, the energy goes like this,
Yeah.
and you need to realize, you know, and your hands are probably sweating, your heart is beating, and you need to think, okay, I need to bring the energy back down, and you feel your feet, and you talk to yourself about, I need to be grounded.
That's a practice.
Yeah, it is a practice.
So, like, slow down, have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also really important to not beat yourself up for it.
Mm-hmm.
That all of the emotions serve a purpose. And, you know, in Chinese medicine, we have these 5 basic emotions, but they're really reactions to stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
So they enable us as an organism to survive. They're all useful. So, you know, feel it, it's okay, you feel it. I think we get into a lot of trouble when we castigate ourselves, when we blame ourselves, when we deny we're feeling it, when we shame ourselves for feeling it. I should be bigger than this. You know, whatever the inner tape is about that, or that we keep grinding it. You know, that's the other. To repress it is damaging, to deny it is damaging, but to beat the living crap out of it is also damaging, you know, to just grind away at that or to keep triggering yourself. You know, there are those times when you have to step away from the computer. You gotta step away. You gotta take a breath. You gotta take a space. You've got to disconnect enough to not be re-engaging the emotion, to allow it to flow down, hopefully, and ground, because the mother can take it all, but to let it move. Because when it's suppressed or when it's amplified and not allowed to move, that's when we're really in trouble. That's what creates dis-ease, and that's what creates disease, and that's what creates punching your plow guy in the face, and all of those things. Not that you would ever do that, I'm so sorry, but to also to start with not blaming yourself for it, to see it, to own it, and then see what to do with it. Because it's useful on some level. Fear is useful.
Yeah.
Fear is useful on many levels. Anger is useful on many levels. Rage, grief, sympathy, joy, they're all useful reactions to stimulus. We just have to figure out how to move with them.
Yeah, so what do you do when you get triggered, right? It happens all the time. Well, you know, what do you want to do, right? Or maybe even like, well, what do you want to be the result of what's going on right now? You know, you might want to pause and just say, well, you know, what do I want to happen here? You know, because we see oftentimes somebody's spouting out some poison and then triggers us, and then we go right out and spout out some poison too. And what's the result? You know, we see that that hasn't worked for us, so we have to do something different now, right? So, you know, anger, yeah, you know, how do we channel that into creating a positive outcome? You know, I think that's a really important thing to do, is just pause on that before you react.
I like. Yep.
In this discussion, one of the things that comes to mind is something that I've long appreciated, that I came across once in the I Ching some number of years ago. And apropos to this discussion, it said, take care to, that whenever we're trying to change something in the environment, you know, and in this case, you know, there's a great deal, that we don't harbor any traces of it within ourselves. And I know in my own life that what engenders separateness is fear, and that fear engenders separateness. And that separateness also exists within myself, where I'm afraid to check in with my own feelings, or where I'm judging myself for experiencing those feelings in the first place. So already I'm cut off from something. And you know, this whole thing around politics, I've long felt that, you know, what spirituality and politics needs to come together at some point. And what's spirituality other than the ability to self-reflect And it just seems like, yes, that's what we're all talking about. We're all in it, we're all doing it. You know, everybody's involved, and it's hard to look at sometimes.
Right. So, okay, what about if you're triggered and you're trying to be in connection? Like you're actually, it's Uncle Joe, or it's Thanksgiving, or it's family. I've heard a lot lately about close people to other people, and it blows their mind that there's someone they know who's like them, you know, maybe even related to them, thinks the other way. And then you know, that alone is, and I've seen it just create total perplexedness in a person. Like, how can this be? And so when you're trying to be in connection, what are some invitations, or, you know, and like I like to say in the men's group, when the men say, well, my wife should do something, I said, she's not here, she's not at the meeting. So like, we're at this meeting, so what do we do to try to be in connection to someone that seems to have lost the thread according to us, and we have lost the thread according to them.
One of the things, just one thing that I want to say to that, in my own experience of being in therapy, I was told that the very first thing to admit or say in sharing with another person where I'm feeling threatened is to say, right now I'm feeling triggered. And that sets up the basis for closing the separateness gap.
That's great.
Yeah, because it's admitting you're vulnerable, and the ideal would be that then it opens up a space for the other person to say, oh yeah, I got scared too, or whatever.
Yeah.
To be honest about what
Yeah.
you're feeling.
Right, that's the best case scenario role play, where in one move, one chess move, I'm feeling really triggered here, so am I. Okay, let's just hang out.
I think that what appeals to me is to, in those scenarios, just throw it out there and go, is there one single thing we can agree on? Is there one thing? What is it that we both want? Do we both want our children to thrive? Okay, all right. Let's hover on that, if that's what it is. Or is there one single thing that we can find, that we can share? Because that's a foundation. You can agree to disagree if you know you have some common foundation. And so that has proven useful to me in some scenarios with my Indiana relatives, to throw it out there. What can we find that we both believe in? What is there? There's bound to be something. Do we both want to make sure that it isn't lead poisoned water coming out of the pipes? Maybe we both want that. Maybe we disagree about everything else but that, but then we can work from that place.
Can we agree that we want to get along with each other?
Even that. Yeah, does that matter at all? Because if the other person can't even go there with you.
Right. Well, I've been triggered enough to say no. I will not agree with that. I want I want to hear an apology from you to me, and I do not accept that.
But I think one powerful toolkit that I've used, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, is what's called nonviolent communication. And it takes many forms, although there's one sort of copyrighted school that teaches nonviolent communication. And the essence has to do with what Neil has been saying, and I think what Gina was pointing out too, which is that there's a trust that there is a common core, not like in the education system, a common core value that people really do want what's best for each other. There's a belief in it, and there's a sense of compassion that motivates the communication. And and to say what I statements, to use I statements. So there's a whole bag of little communication tricks, but I think the essence of it is, can you shift back to the place of wanting to care and come get in touch with the caring of the other person. And frankly, you know, I don't think it's ever productive to argue with anybody about anything, honestly. And I think listening is a really powerful thing that I'm sometimes not very prone to do, but I value it, and I try to be open to that. And it usually is what helps bring about some sort of common ground, because most people need to tell you what they think and what they believe and all of that, and they don't really want to hear what you think or what you believe. So let them do it, and if there's like a compassionate, receptive voice, and sometimes it's amazing, they just sort of sometimes unwind the anger that's in there and sort of find their own truth, you know, or maybe then they might finally ask, well, what do you think? You know, not always, but sometimes they'll come to it.
Isn't that therapy?
It's kind of like that. You know, the truth is, you know, James O'Day is a wonderful writer and thinker about the idea of how we can bring about a change in the world that fosters compassionate living, compassionate community. Uses the term peace ambassador. He says we're learning to be peace ambassadors, or you may already feel like you are that. And that's who we are in the world, potentially. And it is you could say it's like therapy, but it's still a little bit different. But you have a conscious intention with all relationships to bring about an open heart.
I find that these days my biggest challenge is that I resent the heck out of the fact that all this work I've done all these years to come out of a fear-based place, to try and live in a compassionate heart and meet the world with a compassionate heart and not make decisions from a fear-based place. I really resent the fact that I'm suddenly presented with a world that's throwing fear-based crap back at me, and I'm responding with more fear-based stuff, and I'm ticked off about it because I thought that my spiritual growth should be challenged in that way. So it ticks me off. So so great. So my spiritual growth is getting challenged. Wonderful.
This is the advanced course.
Yeah, here we go. We're in advanced placement, spiritual growth. Here we go.
I heard a talk that Tara Brock, who was an insight meditation teacher, give, and she said, I think this is a quote from someone who spoke at the Women's March, and she was thinking about this time not as the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb.
That's a nice spin. Woman. Yes, the
exactly.
That was so beautiful. Yeah.
There's such beautiful stuff coming out, you know, and people are coming together, and there's just an energy in the air of seeking consciously for change and for human interrelationships that I think is just wonderful. I haven't seen it in my lifetime, and I'm a child of the 60s, you know. This is something different. And I think it's because it's like you said, we are being forced. We're being forced out of any kind of hidden place where we still harbor the program to be separate.
Yeah. So this is, I feel like I saw your hand back there, and there's an energy that's awesome that's happening in this field. But let's wrap up this part of it, and then we'll turn off the lights and the camera and everything. But we'll give a chance. Let's kind of do it like a show, because it is. But first, I want to say that Alan did he led an inauguration, like the inauguration for
Group.
People.
Yeah, they did, and at it, Connie Coker cited that like a birthing thing, and she had us all chanting, and this is a practical, that's where I saw you before. You spoke at that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a practical thing that everyone can do. There's doulas it's in the audience here, but breathe and push. Breathe and push, and we were chanting it. It felt really good. It felt like practical advice. But, so let's do this. Let's take a few minutes, each of the four of you, and then we'll break for a minute. Put the chairs in a circle if you'd like to stay. We can really get it moving, and we can actually practice some of the stuff we just heard, or just vent, because that feels good too. So yeah, if whatever feels right, maybe we'll start with Alan. We'll come across, and again, if you'd like to say a favorite cause or where people can find you, that'd be cool. And some final thoughts on, like, after you've heard all that, what's coming up, what's alive.
Well, I know it's a kind of a new age cliche, but this really is an opportunity. This really is an opportunity for growth and development, as we used to say. But it's serious, and we're confronted with really a very, very scary and dangerous thing that's happening, and it's going to call upon us to reach really, really, really deep inside, and to come together, to really gather together our best wisdom and become practical, and really look at, what is it that we can do, and have the courage to do it, and at the same time, ongoing, yes, maybe 25 times a day, maybe 100 times a day, coming back to our center where our true nature is, where our true nature can motivate us in the direction that really brings about what it is that we're seeking in this power movement.
Thank you.
You got any links or contact?
Sorry?
You got any links or contact?
No, nothing that, there's so many that I think they're available.
Okay, well, yeah, final thoughts. I would just say to expand on what Alan says about how much is helpful to stay in your center. For me, it's really helpful to pray, I got an elder, he says, just pray. Even if you don't like to pray, just pray. Even if you don't know how to pray, just pray. So it really helps me to have a connection with the Creator, and with Mother Earth, and with the ancestors and the elements, to remember that there's a lot more to this reality than just meets the eye. There's great forces at work, Oftentimes when we get triggered, we lose that connection, and all of a sudden it's just us and our ego, and we're the ones that have to do this. We lose that connection, we stop having that conversation, and we stop listening for all that wisdom inside of us, all that wisdom that is this web of life, contains. And so keep that connection, You can't always have that connection, it goes away. But it's helpful, to just have a relationship ongoing all the time. It's always there for you, no matter how bad this all gets, no matter how angry or chaotic this world gets. You can always have that connection, that's constant all the time. So it's helpful. Besides that, Jon Lee Rucker, PermaJam. You can join our Facebook group, PermaJam Fam, permajam.com, and you can email me, jonlrucker@gmail.com.
Oh.
My son is in graduate school in the Netherlands. And so when his international friends ask him, how do you feel about what's going on in your country? The first thing he says, well, we learned it from watching you, which I think is kind of funny because they know how to do this right-wing stuff. But the other thing he says, which is simplistic and yet achingly true, is that he feels like we were at our best as a country when we were punching Nazis in the face. And there is something about us as a nation finding and drawing upon our better angels to work against some dark forces. I think the definition of those dark forces is going to be amorphous and shifting, but I think we're galvanized at this point. People are waking up, people who have been complacent, people who have been fairly secure in the fact that we were toddling along in the right direction, have woken up. So that galvanizing, I think, is stupendous. I think we're at a crucial point in human evolution. We can take advantage of that galvanized energy and go punch the metaphorical Nazis in the face together. So that, as Alan said, it's an opportunity, but I think it feels like a cracking open to me of something old and hidebound that is allowing for breath and space and growth and something really beautiful, something really ancient and brand new. We just have to not sink into despair. And so if that means that we reach out to each other and say, I'm having a despair day, that we can be there for each other because we're all gonna feel it, we're all gonna dip and rise and dip and rise, and nobody's energy is gonna stay peak. We're not all punching Nazis in the face at the same rate all the time, but we have to we have to keep reaching hands and picking each other up, because I do think we're galvanized to do something quite stupendous. The cracking open of the old is a spectacular birth that's possible.
Well, ditto, ditto, ditto. The little bit I'll add, I really just agree with everything that people said, but something I don't normally share about, and thank you for talking about this, John, is prayer. And recently, my every morning prayer and what I'm journaling about is I say, please heal my fear-based thoughts, because that seems to cover everything for me. And it's really, really been helping dramatically, really dramatically. I feel like it's just bringing everything in to support me. And the other thing that I can add is create. Create art, create music, create more love, create more harmony. Just go out there and create. Yeah. Cynthia Shaw, Shaw.com.
Awesome, thank you. And uncannily, a perfect segue, because this Wholeness Center Live is going to be the second Wednesday of every month going forward. And the next two are healing. We're going to basically look at healing from all angles and all kinds of different practitioners and modalities. And then the next one, I just decided when you were talking, is creativity. And we're going to look at creativity as, like, this was, what is conscious communication? What's the spark? Where does it intersect? It was cool. I love this. It's fantastic. And it sure helps that I don't get issued a panel. I actually get to pick the amazing people that I know really well.
You got to be creative about that.
Yes, and I'll continue to do that. So yeah, this is exciting, and this is just the kind of one of the public and worldwide faces of the Wholeness Center. But it's what we're doing here is we're creating, we're healing ourselves, and then we're serving the community, and we're trying to build a new way. And I also, just as we close, I want to thank the audiovisual person who is my beloved wife, Lisa. She does this even metaphorically, you know. If I need a bone marrow transplant, she does this. If she needs some of the film, she does this. So, thank you. And thank you, audience, and Ariana.
And
would
I
like
just
to-
want to say thank you, and I also want to say to the audience also that this is a safe space for everybody. No matter what you believe, you will be held, and we are here to witness you and to love you. So come as you are, all is welcome.
Let's actually, is it still rolling?
It's still going.
Let's-
The battery is going, and I'm not sure
Okay.
if it's charging, so it could.
So we're gonna,
I'd
you know
rather
what
like-
we're gonna do? We're gonna close our eyes and ohm the show over, and then we're gonna gather in a circle. We're gonna take a break right after the ohm.
And there were a couple of requests not to turn it off, that they're enjoying this, but they'll have to come to the next one.
Yes.
In person.
How many people are on?
Right now, 3. but
Awesome.
It's been going up and down.
All right, so let's close our eyes and we'll do one unifying, long, slow, juicy, reverberating, healing, inclusive, amazing, wholeness, all together. So next big inhale. Awesome. So again, let's take 2 minutes, stretch your body, get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, and if you'd like to stay, we're gonna turn off the lights, get a little circle, and consciously communicate.